Alright, Eden. Well, I was about to tell a story, and I figured I would share it on my podcast with the world. Because it's a very hardcore one. You're gonna probably think I'm crazy. Definitely. Not definitely. Maybe not. Maybe you've had similar experiences. Or maybe you're going through similar experiences right now. I was gonna record this originally. Just for one certain person. A very special somebody that I care a lot about. I love her very much. So, here goes. Back in 2017, which I call the beginning of my awakening, really. Well, maybe it was 2016, really. But, yeah, so, a little bit after the beginning, one of the hurdles that I went through, very tough time in my life. It's right after my birthday, which I had spent writing a letter for the PETA because one of my mentors, my first mentor, is Vila, a very, very sensitive psychic. I say sensitive instead of powerful psychic because psychic is of a sense. So that makes sense to put it as. And the letter was hard. Now I'm going to say this it's going to seem like I'm jumping around, but I'm going to try to gather up the experiences that I had. That way you can have an understanding of how my mentality worked and how I came to certain esoteric experiences through conscious understanding. So in that letter, I had cried my eyes out because I realized something very hard. You see, I wasn't a vegan at the time. I became one. I'm not so much anymore, but I try to keep it vegan. But I saw the dilemma. I saw that I had to try to speak for the PETA through the letter, while simultaneously to non-vegans in order to convey the message of becoming vegan. And in it, I saw the argument and the dilemma. You see, it never works, did it? Or does it? When you have a vegan versus carnist. And the vegan, no matter how much science, no matter how much arguing there's no winning. So it seemed. And I realized that it would have to be an invitation to empathy. So in the letter, I apologized. It's a very deep letter. It wasn't accepted. It got rejected by the PETA, but in that time frame was culminating a lot of things, a lot of awakenings. Before that, a year before, I was going through a very different thing, a very different experience. I was a newbie in astrology and a newbie in the whole spiritual stuff. And I've always read about it, but and I loved the Bible and I prayed, but I didn't. My spiritual experiences were limited to a handful of things that I had experienced in my childhood. But in 2016, I was in a relationship. And I was cheated on. Near the beginning. And I forgave. I tried to forgive, but I couldn't really forgive, I guess. And I made the mistake of staying in the relationship after. And that had caused me to become the guy, the asshole. Because I was insecure, and I thought that the girl I was with was lying all the time because she had lied so well to me before and gaslit me out of my own sixth sense, and that's pointing the finger, but it's just how it happened. I do take responsibility though. I became a dick. I was insecure, thinking she was cheating on me. And I ruined the relationship until she broke up with me. Which she definitely did the right thing. And I should have broke up to begin with, in the very beginning. But it stuck with me. I hated myself for the way that I had treated her. I hated myself deeply. Then I went into my own little hell, really, of self-blame and regret. Because I was an asshole to her. I was an asshole. I had the whole thing. I even had her freaking, because it was a long-distance relationship. My first long-distance relationship. And I made her get that stupid couples app thing, Oh my god, so gross. Like, nowadays I look back on it and I think, like, oh my god, I can't believe that was me. And sometimes I hear stories that remind me about it, and I just see how disgusting that I was, and I can't help but look down on people that do that too, that are like that too. And a lot of guys are like that. Some women too, but yeah, I empathize at the same time because I understand, because I was them. And I had blamed her so much. But I didn't fully understand yet. And you can tell when you don't fully understand something. When you hold on to the negative emotion and it becomes stagnant in your life. And I had held on. I suppose a bit of me still does, in the sense of self-blame. But I do take responsibility to the point where I forgive, with still holding the values that I learned from it, which is important. Shame. What is shame? What is regret? Those negative feelings of self-blame and self-hate and remorse. It's important that we feel all of our emotions and we allow for all of our emotions. And although there are negative emotions, sometimes those negative emotions are exactly the way that we have to go. And we know that from when they're stagnant, because that means that we're rejecting it. Because the heart never lies. Only thoughts can lie. A lot of people think that following the heart means only following things that feel good. That is not how it goes. 2017, so yeah. I had written the letter. I then afterwards experienced something very powerful where I saw my own aura for the first time. I had seen another person's aura before that, but first time I was able to see my own. And it culminated to a collapse of synchronicity, what I call it. Synchronicity. What is synchronicity? Synchronicity is where you start seeing things that are ironic come up more and more and more. And why does that happen? Now, by default, by the twofold rule of Rudolf Steiner's universal law of esoteric knowledge and universal truth, which states, if the seeker seeks, the seeker shall find. Unless, of course, the seeker is not yet ready, then the universe shall not provide the answer. Now, given that, if you're listening right now, and you haven't turned away, which is generally a thing that we do feel, we get that cognitive dissonance that arises. We get annoyed. If you're annoyed at all of me right now, and you're still holding on, then I salute you. Very much so. You're doing a good job. And if you're still listening, that means that you are ready, right? Well, what is synchronicity? Simple. On the journey to oneness, everything would simplify, wouldn't it? Of course. So the closer you get to universal truths, the closer you get to oneness, the closer you get to God, the more everything that is alike and associated, the more it would show up in your experience. Kind of weird, or is it? Isn't it? It only makes sense if you put reality to a level of consciousness. Otherwise you'd lose your mind. You gotta think of it as that everything is based on consciousness. The whole people put it as a hologram. That's what they say, but I don't like to use that term. I prefer it as a dream. Synchronicity collapses into what I call the Holy Trinity. A lot of people call it the Holy Trinity. You reach universal truths by being sincere enough to face them. Which means a lot of facing yourself. If you remember, the Essene of Egypt were made to bow down and crawl through a little shaft in the Great Pyramid of Giza. And this was in order to humble them, to teach them to be humble and humility, and to have humility. Because that's the only way. That's the only way that we learn these things, if we are the ones that are blocking ourselves from learning them inherently. That's the second part of Rudolf Steiner's twofold rule. If you're not ready for a truth, the universe shall not provide it, because you are the universe. Denial. And then there's the humility to face our denials and accountability. And that's how we receive. So, how did I come about that? Well, I was talking to a friend, a psychic friend, Dmitry. He's a gay dude from Ukraine or something. I don't know. From where they have people that are named Dmitry. Good friend. He's a cool guy. We've been friends for a long time. But I didn't know he was gay at the time. I just thought he was really, really creepy. Because he knew things. And he was psychic as fuck. And he was just, wow, yeah. Just people say things. And you know what it was? He had no idea. The whole time. Because our higher selves work through us. The higher selves know and see things and persuade us to move down avenues and say things and do things that to other people are much too ironic, much too strange I believe that this accounts for most of what people term gang stalking or cause stalking, where they think that everybody's out to get them, and oh my god, CIA's, specifically, stalking them. It's like, okay, yes, but no. Like, okay, yeah, it's true. Yeah, we're all watched and shit. But I mean, that's on a computer scale. That's not like on a like actual people. Like, no, dude, they don't have that kind of manpower. That's ridiculous. It's the thing is that as we would experience synchronicity, if we implement fear, well, then we would cultivate a illusion, and we would make up stories to account for that fear. It depends on what's within us. It depends on how we feel, how we love ourselves or blame ourselves, and it's very much makes sense to the self-love spectrum of the lightworker movement, but at the same time, you got to know yourself first before you can love yourself. So on we go. So this friend, he was insulted because I started to question him a lot, because he just was too creepy. I didn't know he was gay. 2, I knew he was psychic, but I didn't know like what was going on really. I didn't understand the whole aspect of the higher self and the ironies that play out. Synchronicities. The synchronicities were way too much. He would say something as it's happening, like in my my life, personal life, that has nothing to do with online stuff, and it would happen same simultaneous time. There was one point at that time where I had a conversation, and I like to say it as I had a conversation with the universe, because I would be going through a emotional, internal thought process, and a series of text messages from random people, even people I've never talked to before, started coming at me in a full, straight, consecutive order that made perfect sense altogether. Yeah, I recorded the fuck out of that, and I shared the hell out of that, because that was amazing. And the next part is pretty amazing too. You see, he was insulted because I was questioning him a lot, and he said this to me. And it hit. He said, "Don't you know that it hurts to be questioned all the time?" And that hurt hearing from me, because I did know, because I had caused it, and I had been blaming myself for that relationship that I ruined for the whole time. And I had questioned my ex so many times when I should have just forgave. And it hurt because it hit on a level that I understood, to where I could empathize with the emotion itself. See, what is fear? As I fear out into the world, as I was fearing out into the conscious experience of my life, I was lacking faith. And what is God? What is the universe? If I am in everything, if God is in everything, then I am lacking faith in God. And it hurts him, her, however you want to call it. To fear is to stab the universe. To say, I am not that. To question. This is why they say don't question God. Because to question is to blame. To lack faith. It's hypocrisy. This realization had me spiraling. I had just gotten a Moldavite stone. If you've never heard of Moldavite, look at that up. Moldavite is a tektite, a meteor. They don't know how it was formed, and it's very rare. And if you want, I've got a whole bunch, and you can buy one from me. We'll talk. You can hit me up and we'll talk about it. I got a bunch of them. Anyways, look it up. Those things cause spiritual awakenings. For me, it probably was part of that. But anyways, this new understanding of looking at everything and seeing that, oh my God, the whole time that I was gathering up my fears and blames, I was projecting this stab, this thing that it hurts God. It hurts the universe. To empathize, it hurts. And I wasn't paying attention to that. And when I realized that, and I empathized, and I realized how God must feel being blamed, well, then I understood my shame, my deepest soul shame, was that I blamed God in a spiritual way, in a very personal way. Put yourself in God's shoes. If God is love, then that must hurt a lot. Everything started vibrating around me really fast. The whole realm. I got up, I started trying to walk, and everything was shaking like an earthquake, but more of a a vibrational realm kind of sense. I made my way to the living room. The blinds were open, and the window was open. They're never open, we always keep them closed, but they were open that day, and it was nice and sunny. And then my dad came out, because I live with my dad. Yeah, I do. He's a good man. I'm not ashamed of that. People should live with their families. That's strength. That's how it used to be. It should be. Anyways, so my dad came out, and this was the part that hit the most. You see, he, by all means, should not have known anything about what was going on, because most of what was going on was, it was all an internal, mental, and an online thing, really. I didn't talk to him about the kind of stuff that was going on spiritually in my conscious awakening. And I asked my dad, how could this be? It must have made no sense, looking like crazy, right? I said, how is it that things are this way? How could I have been so cruel? And I was talking about to my ex and to God, by my question, by my lack of faith, by my betrayal, really. Betrayal to love. And now here was the part. My dad, the father, sat down inside, and he said, Sean, sometimes I have to have a sense of humor. Because when I do, I see that everything is alright and beautiful. And that's all I can have, is a sense of humor and appreciation. By now, my eyes were wide. I was fucking backing my whole body up like, oh my God, this is happening. Because that's not how my dad, that's not how my dad talks at all. at all. And I just asked him, like, what are you talking about? And he said, it's time, Sean. It's time to go back. It's time to go back to the very beginning of it all. And I was, Synchronicity collapsed a little bit more. Time was different. The light shining brighter and brighter, and everything was still vibrating, and I literally crawled on my knees and hands back to my bedroom while my dad just stood there smiling. Right now, this should not be possible, right? This should be like weird, like what the hell is going on? It must be a dream. And I prayed in bed for hours to forget how I learned how to get there. And I prayed to God because I wasn't ready. I didn't want to go back to the beginning. I didn't want to go back. I started seeing images of Atlantis and images of Egypt and images of time. As time passed by, and I saw it all in everything I looked at. All around my room. Everything was a reflection of the entire history of humanity. I saw it everywhere. And everything that... It was just a consecutive irony. I prayed to God to forget because I couldn't handle it. My mind could not handle it. That amount of psychic connection, the ability to see exactly what was going to happen, what people would say exactly before they say it, almost as if it's like you have to think to yourself. Like, if you know what people say before they say it, are you the one saying it? Are you the one controlling them? What is reality? Do people exist? It's a collapsing, funneling solipsism, and it's very lonely. One is the loneliest number, and it's very egotistical, of course. And I don't recommend it. It feels like going insane. I didn't like it, I didn't want it, and prayed to God to forget how I got there. All night, for hours, I prayed. And then when I woke up, it was 2 days before. That's right. I time traveled to the day before the day before. And it was like it never happened. And I lived those days over again. That would be October 13th, actually, was the day that I had experienced those things and lived again twice. And say whatever you want, but you could look me up on Facebook. I was talking about this shit as it happened, October 13th, 2017. I've talked about it through the years too, mentioning that day. I probably was very vague, yes, but and maybe it was all just a trip, a mind trip, whatever excuse you want to give yourself. Sure, whatever. But I did receive wisdom from it, didn't I? I could tell you that synchronicity is undeniable to be an aspect of universal law that would inevitably happen if you're going towards a universal consciousness, a oneness. Of course, because simplicity. The closer you get to oneness, things would simplify. Right? How would I know that? That's from experience. These things are hard to talk about because my mom was crazy or possessed, whatever one you want to tell yourself. For me, I don't believe in crazy anymore. I believe in consciousness, and I believe in willpower, and I believe in levels of denial. Because by default, we are all in denial. Because God is right behind us in everything we do, and loving and reaching, and only loving, and only hoping that we turn around. And as we don't, as we run, because it's scary feeling that there's something behind us, something we don't want to look at, a darkness that we've put up. We run and we blame God. And in that fear, we create hell. Can you imagine and empathize with how God must feel? If you've ever read the story about Josea and Gomer, read it again. Very few people know that that was the first time in history that a human being had empathized with God to see how God feels. And truly, that is our life. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing my story. And to that special somebody whom I care about a lot, I love you. I love you very much. Uo mau ke ea o ka aina hika pono o humanity. If you want to learn, you gotta try. You gotta get it wrong to get it right. Searching for the truth, but finding the lies. When all you gotta do is look inside you, it's all in you. Baby, it's all in you. Tell you it's all in you. Yeah, you know it's all in you. You wanna be a star, you gotta shine. Use your own light when you need a guide. Keep getting lost, following signs. When everything you need is right inside you, it's all in you. Tell you it's all in you. Baby, it's all in you. Yeah, you know it's all in you. Did you know that you can leave a message to be on the show? That's right, you can. If you go to the show's description on whatever platform you're listening to this on, and mind you, it does host on many platforms. The SAS podcast, Starseeds Angels Savant Syndrome, hosts on many platforms, as most podcasts do these days. Well, if you look in the description for the show, you'll find a link to message us. And you can leave a audio recording for the show and be on air, not live, but you can ask a question or leave a statement. Heck, this show is explicit and it's rated explicit, so you can even swear. You can swear at me if you want and roast me, and that's perfectly fine. I welcome anybody to say anything that they want, and that's freedom of speech, how it should be. I don't know if there's a time limit on the audio recording that you're allowed to record with, but try to keep it a little bit short. I'd say at least under like half an hour, if that's okay with you. But yes, please do message and be on the show. You can do so anonymously. Perfectly fine.